The village of Umuka lay hidden between jagged hills and thick forests, where time itself seemed to move slower. In this secluded community, tradition reigned, and ambition was frowned upon, especially in women. But Amara was not like the other women of Umuka. From a young age, she had felt a pull in her chest, a desire for more. Not just comfort, but control. Not just riches, but reverence. She wanted her name to echo through time, to be feared and worshipped, to command the kind of respect no woman in her bloodline had ever tasted. Amara's family had always been poor. Her mother, a midwife, and her father, long dead, had left her with nothing but wisdom and a worn-out hut. But wisdom could not buy fine clothes, could not silence the laughter of rich wives at the market, could not bend others to her will. The more she watched the powerful men of the village swagger with entitlement, the deeper her hunger grew. The elders said contentment was a virtue. Amara believed it was a curse. She wanted more, needed more, and she was ready to do whatever it took to get it. One cold night, while wandering the forbidden forest on the outskirts of Umuka in search of rare herbs, she heard a voice. It was not the voice of a man, nor beast, but something in between. The air around her stiffened, and the trees seemed to bend toward her. The voice called her by name, not with sound, but directly into her mind. "I see your fire," it said, "and I can feed it, for a price." Amara did not run. She smiled. The forest grew darker as Amara followed the whispers, her heart pounding but her feet steady. The trees parted, revealing a hollow within a massive, gnarled tree that pulsed with a soft, eerie glow. A chill swept through her bones as she stepped closer. The voice returned, stronger now, reverberating through the air like distant thunder. "You seek power, child of dust," it hissed. "But power has a price. I will pay it," Amara said aloud, her voice trembling slightly. "Whatever it takes." A shadow slithered out from the roots of the tree, forming into a humanoid shape with glowing eyes and no mouth. It circled her slowly. "You will be rich, feared, unstoppable," it promised. "But your voice, your words, your laughter, your scream, they belong to me." Amara hesitated, clutching her throat instinctively. Her voice was all she had left of her father, who used to say she could calm storms with it. But storms didn't feed hungry mouths. She nodded once. The shadow lunged, engulfing her in darkness. Pain flared through her, then silence. When she awoke at dawn, she lay at the base of the tree, her throat burning. She opened her mouth, but no sound came. In her palm lay a pendant shaped like a tongue, pulsing with a red glow. The entity was gone, but something inside her had changed. Amara rose slowly, and with her first step, the forest itself seemed to bow. Amara returned to the village cloaked in early morning mist. Her eyes glinted with an unnatural shimmer, and though she uttered not a word, people began to notice. The market grew quieter when she passed. Children stopped playing. Dogs cowered. Even her mother looked at her differently, sensing a shift too deep for words. Amara could feel the power in her limbs, the strength coursing beneath her skin. She moved with a confidence she had never possessed, and when she fixed her gaze on someone, they obeyed without question. By the end of that week, Amara had acquired a plot of land no one dared dispute. She commanded laborers with nothing but gestures and glances, and they worked with fervor, as though her silence was more commanding than any shouted order. Her newfound wealth came from mysterious sources, bags of gold and gifts left at her doorstep. No one asked where it came from, and she didn't explain. But power comes with its shadows. At night, she dreamt of the entity, whispering dark secrets in her sleep. She woke drenched in sweat, unable to scream. Her mother watched her from the doorway, concern etched in every line of her face. Amara wanted to reassure her, to whisper that everything would be fine, but her voice, her most human tether, was gone. In its place was silence, and the crushing weight of a bargain already paid. In just a few months, Amara's name was whispered with a mix of reverence and fear. Her compound, now guarded by silent men in black robes, was built with the finest red clay and crowned with golden ornaments. She hosted feasts for the village, where guests ate in silence, too awestruck to speak in her presence. Her mother watched it all unfold, bewildered and uneasy. The daughter she had raised to be strong had become untouchable, cloaked in an eerie calm and fueled by a power she couldn't understand. Amara had everything she'd once desired: land, servants, gold, influence, but with every gift came a deepening emptiness. She couldn't laugh at jokes, couldn't shout when angry, couldn't even hum the lullabies her mother used to sing. All she had were gestures, glances, and silence. In her private chamber, she would hold the pendant and stare into its red glow, longing for the freedom of speech. One night, her mother entered her chamber, tears in her eyes. She wrote on a slate, "Who are you now, Amara?" Amara turned away. She no longer knew. Amara's rise did not go unnoticed beyond Umuka. A messenger arrived from the neighboring kingdom of Edom, bearing a gold-sealed scroll. The king, intrigued by tales of a voiceless woman with the strength of 10 men and wealth beyond counting, had summoned her to court. Amara's mother begged her not to go, warning that power drew predators. But Amara, cloaked in crimson and flanked by guards, mounted her horse. At the royal court, she was welcomed with suspicion and curiosity. Nobles whispered behind fans and goblets, but when Amara locked eyes with them, they grew silent. The king watched her closely, entertained yet uneasy. He ordered a test, a duel against his best warrior. Amara nodded once, stepped into the ring, and with a single motion, brought the warrior to his knees. The court gasped. The king clapped slowly, his smile not reaching his eyes. Amara had made an impression. But with that came dangerous interest. Days after her victory at court, the king summoned Amara privately. She entered the palace gardens, where roses bloomed under enchanted moonlight. He studied her as one might study a rare beast, curious, calculating. "You are a marvel," he said, "and marvels belong in my court. Be my consort. Rule beside me." Amara's heart raced. She had dreamt of royalty, of influence, of sharing a throne. But something in his tone chilled her. It was not an offer, it was a command. When she did not reply, he chuckled. "Oh, right. You cannot speak. Even better. Less noise." Her silence was once a tool. Now it was a cage. She bowed politely, then turned and walked away. That night, she received a warning. Leave Edom, or be made to stay. She understood then. The king did not tolerate refusal. She left before dawn, cloaked in shadow, her guards silenced forever. As Amara fled Edom, she felt the pendant throb hot against her chest. In a dream, the entity returned, laughing from the darkness. "You sought power, now you must protect it." When she awoke, her palms burned. Her power was shifting, stronger, wilder. But a messenger followed her, wounded and breathless. "They're coming. The king sent soldiers to drag you back." Amara stood at the village gate as warriors charged from the hills. She lifted her hands, and the earth obeyed. The ground split, swallowing men and horses. Fire erupted from her footsteps. But blood soaked the land. Her power demanded sacrifice. Even innocent villagers were caught in the chaos. When it was over, Umuka was silent, not with awe, but grief. The village mourned. Smoke curled from the remnants of homes, and wails of sorrow replaced the once vibrant morning chatter. Amara walked among the ruins, untouched yet burdened. Children avoided her gaze. Elders whispered prayers of protection. Her mother, face streaked with tears and ash, approached with trembling hands and wrote on a slate, "Was this the greatness you wanted?" Amara fell to her knees. She wanted to scream, to cry out and explain that she never meant for this, but only silence poured out. She could not justify the blood on her hands, nor could she undo the lives lost. That night, she placed the pendant on her shrine and stared into its glow. The power that had elevated her now chained her. With trembling fingers, she scrawled a question into the dust. "Is there a way back?" The shadows on the wall flickered. The entity was listening. The entity emerged once more, coalescing from the darkness around the shrine. Its form was more defined now, almost human, draped in a swirling black cloak. Amara faced it, her eyes filled with both fury and desperation. "You wish to undo the cost?" the entity whispered into her mind. "You ask for your voice, for your peace, for the lives lost?" Amara nodded, tears streaming down her face. She dropped to her knees and pressed her palms together in supplication. "There is a way," it said, circling her. "But the cost is greater this time. You must give up all the power I gave you. Wealth, strength, control, all gone. You will become ordinary, forgotten, and in exchange, the dead will rest, and your voice will return." She trembled. Everything she had fought for would vanish. But the cries of her people echoed in her soul. She nodded. "So be it," the entity whispered. It reached for the pendant. Flames engulfed her, and when she awoke, Amara could speak again. But her mansion was gone. Her guards, gone. Her name, once revered, now a curse. And she, a silent legend reborn. Amara's voice was hers again, but it felt like speaking through dust. Her first word, "Mama," broke her mother's heart into both joy and sorrow. They held each other in the ruins of their hut, surrounded by silence, not from magic, but from grief. The villagers watched her from afar, unsure whether to forgive or fear her. She no longer had her power, her wealth, or her influence. Only the memories of what had been lost. Her days were spent helping to rebuild Umuka. She hauled wood, swept ashes, and sat by the wounded. Slowly, with time and humility, some villagers began to speak to her again. But others still called her witch, their voices hushed but sharp. Amara accepted their judgment. It was part of the cost. Her name no longer echoed through halls of gold, but through the fragile hands of reconciliation. Every night, Amara sat by the shrine where she had first summoned the entity. The pendant, now cold and lifeless, lay buried beneath a stone. She no longer heard whispers or felt the surge of magic. She was human again, holy, painfully human. But with her voice returned came a new strength. She began to speak in public gatherings, not with force, but with clarity. She shared her story, her mistakes, the price of ambition untethered by wisdom. Her voice, once a weapon, now became a bomb. Young girls listened with wide eyes. Mothers wept quietly. The elders debated whether this was redemption or manipulation. But Amara wasn't seeking approval. She was seeking balance. In the wake of Amara's fall from glory, another figure began to rise, her childhood friend Charity. Charity had always admired Amara's courage, but not her choices. Now, with Amara's guidance, she began leading village initiatives, rebuilding homes, starting trade routes, organizing food drives. Amara stayed by her side, not as a leader, but as a companion. She no longer craved the spotlight. Her power was not in silence or sorcery, but in truth and transparency. Slowly, Umuka began to change, not from fear, but from shared effort. The women of the village began to take up roles once denied them. Amara's story became a cautionary tale, but also a turning point. The elders proposed a new tradition, the Festival of Remembrance, honoring those lost during the attack from Edom. At first, Amara refused to attend. She felt she had no right. But Charity insisted. During the festival, Amara stood before the crowd. With tears in her eyes and strength in her voice, she recited the names of the fallen. The villagers listened in stunned silence. Not once did she ask for forgiveness. She simply spoke truth. When she finished, there was no applause. But there were nods. And that, for Amara, was enough. With the village healing, Amara turned her efforts toward the youth. She opened a small learning hall, teaching girls how to read, write, and lead. At first, only a few came. But word spread. Her lessons weren't just about books. They were about consequence, responsibility, and resilience. Some of the girls asked about the entity. Amara never lied. She told them about the cost of shortcuts, of power unearned. She told them that every gift had a price, and that true strength came from within, not from bargains in the dark. And as they listened, they learned not just from her words, but from the life she now lived. Months passed, and no more soldiers came from Edom. Rumors whispered that the king had fallen ill. Others said he had vanished without a trace. Some believed Amara's rejection had cursed him. But Amara knew better. Power like his, built on domination and fear, always consumed itself. She felt no triumph, only a quiet understanding that unchecked ambition, wherever it lived, would always destroy its host. She prayed for peace, for her village, and even for her enemies. One morning, a letter arrived. It bore no seal, no name. Only a single line written in a familiar, curling script. We always listen, even after silence. Amara felt her spine stiffen. She burned the letter at the edge of the shrine and scattered the ashes. She would never summon the entity again. But she knew others might. So she taught her students the signs, the symbols, the dangers. She became not just a teacher, but a guardian of wisdom. A stranger came to Umuka, a woman wrapped in gray, her eyes hollow, her presence chilling. She asked for Amara, saying nothing of her past. They walked through the fields together. I made a bargain, the woman said. But I chose death over silence. Amara understood. They shared no more words. When the woman left, Amara buried another pendant beneath the earth, beside her own. There were others, and she had a duty to help them. Years passed. Amara grew older, her hair streaked with silver, her face lined with memory. The village had changed. Girls led councils. Men sought wisdom, not just muscle. Umuka became a place of learning, of second chances. Amara no longer feared her voice. She spoke with purpose. Her fire hadn't faded, it had been refined. And deep within her, she no longer regretted the deal. Because through it, she had found who she truly was. On the anniversary of the Festival of Remembrance, the children performed a song. It was written by one of her students, and it told Amara's story, not as a villain, but as a warning. Not as a goddess, but as a guide. As they sang, Amara wept. For once, her voice wasn't needed. Amara died on a quiet morning, surrounded by her students and her mother. Her final words were soft. Guard your dreams, but weigh their cost. They buried her beside the shrine beneath the tree where it all began. No statues were built, no monuments rose, but her story lived on in every girl who dared to dream. And somewhere, in the darkness between worlds, the entity watched and waited. But Umuka was ready. The price had been paid.
Subscribe now and join the Firelight Tale family. Turn on notifications, because each story is an ember waiting to spark your imagination.